Hola, how are we doing, brothers? A little bit something different for you today. We're going to be thinking about the mindset, the psychology behind your fitness journey. Now, you might think, geez, this is just waffle. This is nothing to do with me. You've got to realize the mindset, the brain, the psychology is the driver. It's the driver behind everything you do. You can have every intention of, being consistent in your working out, following a good, healthy diet. But if your mindset doesn't or isn't set up to do that, you ain't going to stand a chance because that is your pilot. Going into it then, what are we going to learn today? We're going to learn why the mindset is so important, and if you can crack that, you are fighting a winning battle. Number two, self-psychology sabotage. What do we do to actually kill the mindset? What do we do to actually give ourselves a little bit of a disadvantage? Number three, some simple habits that you can include and start to incorporate into the way you think and the way that you do things from today. And number four, a little bit more in-depth psychology skill work. What can you look to improve upon over an amount of time? Because psychology is a skill, just like your training, just like your sport. So the more that you practice it, the better that you're going to be at performing it, and therefore the more effective it's going to be. So why is mindset key? Okay, like I said at the start, it actually determines how you act. If you think that you don't want to go to the gym and that you'd rather sit and play on the Xbox, guess what you're going to do? You're going to sit and play on the Xbox. Okay? It also helps you to really think logically about things rather than emotionally. Okay, so if we have a mindset that is reactive to emotions, like, again, seeing your scale go up, seeing pictures and not seeing any progress, you can start to get in your own head that things aren't working, and emotionally you might throw in the towel. However, if you think more logically, like, I've only been doing this for a couple of weeks, I've not started in the most consistent manner, I'm just finding my feet with things, I'm going to crack on and, actually give this a go. And therefore, that logical thinking is actually setting you up for more longer term success and consistency. Delayed gratification. What is this? Now, this is a hot topic in recent years, okay? And because we have so many stimuluses that give us that gratification nowadays instantly, Netflix, Amazon delivery, social media, vaping, drugs, processed high, sugary junk food, they all set off those endorphins in the brain, and they make us feel good in the moment. And because we have so many opportunities now to do it instantly, we've become lazy. We've become a slave to gratification. And what does delayed gratification means? It simply means delaying it or offsetting that gratification to make sure you do the thing that gives you a much higher buzz. Again, I'm going back to it. Would you rather, in the moment, sit on the Xbox, play a few games of COD, and get a little bit of a buzz, but probably a lot of effing and jeffing frustration as well? And obviously, not in the long term, you're going to get much kind of progress or advantage from that. Or are you going to go to the gym, train hard for an hour, come out of there sweating, sore, feeling good about yourself, but knowing that you've put the work in, and then when you get home, you can relax, jump on the Xbox and play a few games of COD? Which one would you rather do? Because you're able to get the instant gratification in there at some point. You're just offsetting it till you do something hard beforehand, so you do something productive beforehand, and therefore you can almost try to start to treat that like a bit of a reward system, then instantly giving in to something that is going to make you feel good for just a few seconds, if at all. And some famous examples. So if you're a sports person like me, you might know of a few examples. You might see certain sports stars take a real big decline in their careers out of nowhere. So I'm going to name a few notable names. For those of you who love football or soccer, Fernando Torres was an amazing football player for Liverpool and for Atletico Madrid. And before he went on his downward slope, he was untouchable. He was one of my favourite players, despite being a Man United fan. He had it all: strength, pace, finishing. And then all of a sudden he had a little bit of an injury He came back and it was like someone had swapped him for his twin brother who was much less talented and much less confident. And he never hit the heights of that again. The mindset was obviously that he had been out injured and this was probably playing a lot on his mind and he could never get over that hurdle in his head. Another one, maybe even more famous, is Conor McGregor. Now, this is slightly different because he came from a background and an upbringing where he had to fight for every single success that he made. You know, he was the true underdog story and he made it big in the UFC. He actually became the biggest superstar in the world of sport at one point. Okay? But he let that fame, that money, that comfortable atmosphere and environment get to him. And all of a sudden, he was not the same fighter. He didn't want the dogfights that the other fighters in the division wanted, and he was made to pay for that. And up until recently, I'm not a huge golf fan, but from what I know, speaking to other people, Rory McIlroy is by far one of the greatest golfers to ever walk the earth, and definitely right now playing at the top of his game. However, he was constantly getting to the final rounds of a major competition after being so long without a winner's medal, and he just wasn't quite able to turn it on for those, championship rounds. And it's not of a lack of trying, it's not of a lack of talent. No. It's because he wasn't essentially in the right mind frame. He wasn't confident in his own skills. He couldn't break that voodoo until recently, where he did. And now I would expect, if mindset was the key challenge, that he's going to go on a really big run of major tournaments. Okay, moving into self-sabotage. This means basically, what do we do in our own brains, in our own minds, to actually sabotage ourselves in terms of our health and fitness journey specifically? Okay, so first and foremost, we tend to dwell on our mistakes. Mistakes being in the diet and letting a slip up get the better of us. Mistakes in not training for a consistent amount of time, or even injuring ourselves during a training session and we let it get in our heads. If we're trying to learn a new skill and we're constantly making mistakes, not quite grasping the movement patterns, then we can dwell on it. It's no good. If we dwell on the mistakes and feel sorry for ourselves, we're never going to pick ourselves up and actually get over that little hurdle. Instead, what you could do is think about the mistake or think about the situation and learn from it. Why did it happen? How did it happen? And how can I do better next time in a similar circumstance? Self-disrespect. This is connected to the self-talk where we talk about ourselves. I'm too weak. I'm too lazy. I'm not fit enough. I'm not strong enough. Basically, putting yourself in a box is an automatic way to limit your capabilities. Because if you think that, then how are you supposed to then tell your body to do the thing to get over the thing that you're saying you can't do? Instead, be more positive. Tell yourself you can do this. And if you can't, then next time you're going to give it your all. Tell yourself that you can do this, that you will do this. And that relates then to self-loathing, becoming the blame victim, becoming, an excuse merchant. I've not got the right genetics. I'm too busy, or no one understands me. My family is, takes priority. I've got too much work on. Anything. I can't squat properly, so I'm not going to go to the gym. These little things and excuses and being the blame victim, trying to give yourself a way out, again, is the way to essentially fail at anything in life, not just within your health and fitness. Negative comments, that relates to self-disrespect, negative comments about yourself. This will typically come when you start to look at your pictures in the mirror and you start to pick out the things that you don't like, instead of looking at the things that you do like, that you've improved upon, that you are proud of yourself for. And self-loathing, as I said, relates to those blame and excuses. But I didn't talk about blame. Blame may be on, your upbringing, the fact that your dad didn't push you to go to the gym, the fact that you didn't have the best environment that would, teach you essentially how to look after yourself and how to live a healthy, balanced lifestyle. All these things, again, are, they might be true, but they don't have to basically define who you are. Simple habits. So again, my background being in sports psychology, it sounds, quite difficult to understand, and it is. Don't get me wrong. Psychology is a very, very difficult thing to firstly understand and then apply to your own life. So the way I like to look at it is, how do we actually simply apply some of the tactics and some things that are going to give us an instant boost, an instant, progress in how we, use our minds and how we relate to our mindset. Smile like you mean it. You might have heard the song by The Killers. You might have heard the famous phrase, by just simply smiling through pain, smiling through your depression, smiling through feeling unhappy, can give you a boost in endorphins and actually start to make you feel better, start to actually make you feel close to being happy, if not happy at all. So smile through it. Might sound stupid, but it works. Look for the good. Goes back to what I said about self-loathing and reflection. You'll look for the good in something rather than everything being super, super negative. What do I mean by this? Well, you might have gone to a competition over the weekend. You might have, lost and came, near to the bottom. You could have said, shit, I did awful. I came last on every workout. This went wrong, that went wrong. Instead, you're not actually telling yourself, you know what, actually, this was quite a high level competition. I got the best squat I've ever got. I couldn't have moved any faster in, the endurance workout. I'm pretty damn proud of myself, and next time, if I can apply the same, I might do better. Simple switch around. Don't sweat the small stuff. What I mean by this is just everyday life. Little things that happen, little things that are going to essentially piss us off. Your girlfriend doesn't text you back after 2 hours. You've, broken the remote control and have to get a new one. There's a small puncture in your tyre. These things, okay, at the time might feel like the world is crashing down on us and it's super, super annoying because we have to now deal with something that we hadn't planned to deal with in our day. But if we sweated on every single small thing that went on through our lives, we are constantly going to be in a mode of negativity. Just brush it off. Think how to deal with it and move on. Reflect, simple reflection. What could I have done better? What went well? Am I proud of myself? All these things can definitely help you, look at any scenario with more productivity. This is one of my favorite ones. Stop with the what ifs. We love to think, what if this happens? What if that happens? Now, what if I told you 80 to 90% of those what if scenarios we think of in our head never, ever, ever come true? So that means you're wasting a huge amount of energy, a huge amount of time thinking of things that just will never happen. So how I like to actually look at this is, you deal with the cards that you've got at this moment. What can I do? You move the situation as much forward as you can. And then until the next point that you can have any effect, try not think about it. We will cross that bridge when we get to it. But for now, I can't do anything. So I won't do anything and I won't think about it. And I promise you, it might sound stupid. It might sound easier said than done. But once you get the hang of that, you free up your mind for so much more. And you are so much more positive about things. You're so much more logically thinking about it as well. Because when the problem does come up, you've had the time away from it to maybe come and look at it from a different angle and a better way of actually dealing with that situation. And then we move on to the more in-depth psychological skill work. Okay, so we can look at forms of meditation. Now, you can meditate in various ways. You can go and sit by a stream. You can shut all the lights off and close your eyes. You can go on even just a nice walk out in nature and let your mind be consumed by, the sensories going on around you, the birds tweeting, the air, the smell of the freshly cut grass. All of these things are forms of meditation. Find the one that works for you. Find the one that allows you to go right inside your own brain and, sort of make that connection with you again. Self-reflection and gratitude. So I've already talked about this, reflecting on things that have happened and almost making a pros and cons analysis list. What went well, what didn't went well. But gratitude is the practice of actually feeling proud of yourself. Especially if you are someone who is forward thinking, you're ambitious, you're always chasing goals. we're the ones that actually don't practice gratitude near enough. And we can hit big milestones in life and not even bat an eyelid. And it's not good, because essentially, what are you aiming for then? What enjoyment are you getting out if you're just always looking for the next best thing? So gratitude is an important practice to obviously do as well. This can be done, in the form of just thinking about it, but a more effective way of practicing gratitude might actually be to write in a journal, regularly. It doesn't have to be every day, but once a week could be possible. And therefore, you're actually getting your ideas down on paper and letting them sink in. Positive self-talk. This is literally, what it says on the tin, talking to yourself in a positive manner, not giving yourself derogatory comments, actually saying, I'm strong enough to lift this weight. I'm good enough to compete with these people. I'm fast enough to, be near the front, or I'm fast enough to take on this competition, and say, if in the events of, not you performing to your best of your abilities, well, they were just a little bit better than me, but I gave it my all. Next time I think I'm going to be able to, try and lift 5 kilos more because I had a little bit more in the tank. Or, I'm going to go away, I'm going to work on those skills that maybe let me down today, and next time I'm going to come back fighting. And emotional connection, especially as men, we love to push our emotions to one side. Now, it might be the way you were brought up, and it might be the old-fashioned way of being a man, but it doesn't get you anywhere. Creating emotional connections with things is super, super powerful, not only for your motivation, but your understanding of, basically how different events, different people, different things affect you as a person. And if you can make emotional connections, you can start to, one, rid of all the toxic in your life, the things that don't make you feel good, the things that actually put a frown on your face and make you worry, make you anxious. But also, who and what gives you a smile, makes you feel good, makes you feel warm, makes you feel happy, and bringing them into your life more, and you're just enhancing your life even further just by understanding what works for you and what doesn't. So this is a whistle-stop tour of the brain. Of course, it's not super, super in-depth. It's not, backed by scientific evidence in the sense that I'm, reflecting or referencing anything, but of course it is scientifically backed in terms of a lot of things I'm talking about. But what I promise you, if you put some of these things into practice, if you take on board some of the points that I've made today, I promise your mindset and your psychology will start to work with you rather than against you. And by one step at a time, just like any skill acquisition, you can become the king of your own psychology. Peace.